This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to be excited about a football player on your favorite team, but for whatever reason, there's something about how they play football and how you've seen them play football that makes you more nervous than excited? Like, it's like you can't get yourself to get as excited about that player as maybe other people in that fan base. And I, like anybody else who has a favorite football team, have players on the Cleveland Browns that I want to be super excited about. And look, I'm not necessarily down on these players, but I'm not super amped for these players. I'm kind of just in between with these guys. Like, I don't think that it's not that I don't think that these guys are capable of having a breakout. It's just, if you're asking me in my gut feeling, will these guys have a breakout? And I'll explain what that means for every player that I list here. I don't think that's going to be necessarily the case for one reason or the other, or maybe if I see them do this thing, then it will be easy for me to get excited. But the first player I put on this list is one that I think is on a lot of people's list, because I think a lot of people don't know how to feel about Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is a very talented player. Jerry Jeudy is somebody who has consistently gotten about 800 to 900 yards, which is not nothing, right? He's had other wide receivers of note there, so it's not like he's the only receiver getting the ball. Like, that's real production, 800 yards. It's not necessarily the best production in his draft class, which is, I think, the bulk of his criticism, but it's something that put a label on him that he's going to have to shake during the season. And that label is somebody who, one, who people like nationally have a bad taste in their mouth about Jerry Jeudy. When you hear people talk about Jerry Jeudy, it's almost like they're talking about a player who has a different stat line than him. And also, you have the tagline of an underperformer for Jerry Jeudy. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with the draft class he was selected in. I think Justin Jefferson and Michael Pittman were in his draft class, and he went before all of those guys. So when you're in Denver and you draft a wide receiver, you're always going to compare him to the other wide receivers in that draft class. I've talked about that at Max. And it's not like I don't think he's capable of putting up good numbers or living up to that $17.5 million contract that he signed, because I think that's a contract that's worthy of a wide receiver who can get upper 100 to low thousands productions, right? And I think that's what Jerry Jeudy is in line to do. The question with Jerry Jeudy is, will the production be consistent, right? That's why I get nervous about it, because I think he'll get to 800, 900 yards, because there are going to be games where the Browns are going to be causing so many problems offensively that he's going to be able to break free and have a giant game. But will he be the type of wide receiver that you can't necessarily rely on despite the numbers being good, because he'll disappear for a couple weeks at a time? We went through this a little bit with Elijah Moore, who's another guy that's on this list, where he just felt like for whatever reason he would disappear for spurts of the season. He showed up really strong at the end of the year, but the first half of the year was a real struggle to get Elijah Moore, to get anything out of Elijah Moore. And I wonder if that's going to be true for Jerry Jeudy. And my big concern, when you have Elijah Moore on this list, you have Jerry Jeudy on this list, and a lot of the guys that I'm worried about, or like I'm taking a step from being super excited about, when they're mainly guys who receive the football, you worry about Is that going to make the passing attack streaky? Are we going to walk away from a couple of games here where we're like, damn, if the wide receivers, if they could just catch the ball, we would be fine, right? Like kind of how we felt after Deshaun Watson's game versus the New Orleans Saints. I worry about that with this receiving core because when you look at them top to bottom, you have one dude who you feel like is a no doubt consistent catcher of the football. And that's Amari Cooper. I love David Njoku to death, but we know that David has made improvements being a better catcher of the football. He's still not the most consistent hands guy in the NFL. He will go through a spurt where he just drops shit. That happened last year, right? When DTR was in there. Now you can blame it on DTR throwing fastballs 100 mile per hour, but we still needed David to catch them fastballs, right? Like the point being is that when it comes to this wide receiving core's ability to catch the football, more questions than I would like, right? The upside is there, right? Because if they catch the ball consistently, like I think we're going to see games where this receiving core looks like they can compete with the best receiving cores of all of the NFL. I think there's going to be some games, though, where we're going to be very frustrated with this receiving core's ability to catch football. I don't think it's going to be consistent. I don't think it's going to be something that costs you that many games, especially when you have a defense like the Cleveland Browns. But I do think it's going to be something that pops up every once in a while. Because again, let's look at it. Let's just go through the line and look at it. You got Amari Cooper. No doubt. He can catch the football. Even though there are times where Amari Cooper just don't catch the ball for like a couple quarters. It's not like a game-wide thing with Amari, but it happens. It happens. There's like 3 quarters every year where Amari Cooper just doesn't catch the ball for whatever reason. Elijah Moore, you can say that is definitely true for him. Jerry Jeudy, that is definitely true for him. David Njoku, Jordan Akins, Cedric Tillman. That is one of my bigger concerns about this team. It doesn't get talked about a lot because this is something that's hard to talk about before it happens because it's not something you can just unanimously claim, right? I'm not saying the receiving core is bad. I think they're very talented. I think they're going to look excellent at times. I'm just worried that this receiving core is going to go through spats of not catching the ball super consistently or spats of not being able to separate against man consistently. I worry about that because when you look at some of the principal players, while they are extremely talented players, they're not consistent. Now, here's the saving grace and why I don't think this is going to be something that's even going to come close to remotely tanking the Browns season. Come here. This is something you can get away with when you have a great defense. That's why ultimately the concern doesn't stop me from being excited about the Browns. It just stops me from being excited about like drafting wide receivers on my fantasy team that play for the Browns. Like that's my level of concern. Let me make this very clear. I don't think this is going to mess up the whole season. I just think this is going to mess up like your fantasy football team. That's where I'm at with it because I think this is going to affect individual production more than it's going to affect something like wins and losses. Because the one thing that can get you through inconsistency on offense is a great defense. Watch the Cincinnati Bengals closely. Watch that offense that everybody calls one of the best in the NFL. It's very inconsistent. Did you watch the Kansas City Chiefs last year? That offense was the last thing from consistent. The last thing from consistent. But they were able to win a Super Bowl. And in the Bengals case, they were able to get to 2 conference championship games. Because the defense was really good. And when you have a defense that's going to give you multiple chances at trying to score the football, and it's going to minimize the impact of you not scoring, well, then that makes being inconsistent on offense not that big of a deal. So I do think that the Browns passing attack will have moments of brilliance. Like we will get frustrated at this passing attack because we will see what they're capable of. And I don't think it's going to be limited to who they play against. I think there's just going to be games where like everything's clicking. Guys are catching the ball. David Njoku is in one of them glue gun modes where he's just catching everything and making all kind of acrobatic dives and shit. And then you got Jerry Jeudy having a good game here. And then Elijah Moore pops off for a couple and Deshaun gets hot, starts hitting Jordan Atkins. Like, I think that is very possible for this team, that you have games where the passing attack is just brilliant. I think there's going to be games where you're like, man, Deshaun was on point, but they weren't catching the ball. Or, I feel like Deshaun missed a lot of opportunities throwing the football. And, you know, we really had to scrape our way through that one a little bit more than I thought we'd have to. Those are going to happen too. I think the offense is going to be much better than last year. I think they're going to be more explosive than last year. But when you aim to be explosive, when you aim to attack downfield, what you sacrifice is consistency. And I look at these wide receivers and I don't see the picture of consistency that I want to see from this group of wide receivers. So that makes me feel like, hey, it's very possible. It's very possible that we have a hot or cold offense. Now, again, you know what else helps you out if you have a hot or cold passing attack? Nicholas Chubb, right? If Nick Chubb can get back to form, again, the Browns have so many things that could support a inconsistent passing attack that it might not end up being that big of a deal. Right? When you have a great defense, when you have a good run game, those things can minimize the impact of an inconsistent passing game. But I really want to be surprised if that's the case. That's why I'm more interested when it comes to the conversation about Deshaun Watson, less so in the numbers, because the numbers will be the numbers. But like, if it is inconsistent, but the Browns win a bunch of games, are people even going to notice? If people notice, what does that mean for what his impact is? Like, the small details are going to matter with the evaluation of Deshaun Watson. Like, I think a lot of people want this to be easily explainable, positive or negative, right? I think some people want this to be obviously the worst trade in NFL history, or obviously a good trade and people should get off the Browns' back. But I don't think we're going to get one of those realities. I think we're going to be living in the gray a lot with this, where it depends on somebody's perspective how much credit they're going to be willing to give the quarterback position. And it's going to be something that's going to be consistently debated about the impact of Deshaun, despite the fact that the team is probably going to have a lot of success. So throw the whole receiving crew in there, because I don't have the greatest faith in Jordan Atkins, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, everybody but Amari Cooper. And even with Amari Cooper, love Amari Cooper to death. But we all know Amari good for like a quarter or two of not catching the football. It happens every year. He's played excellent football, but every year he does give us a couple quarters where he don't catch the football. And it's weird, but we live with it because he's pretty excellent outside of that. But that is the one thing, well, the thing on offense, I guess, that's, you know, I would personally temper some enthusiasm on, is how consistent is that passing game going to be? There's going to be highs. There's going to be lows. I don't think the lows are going to be super low, but I do think the highs can be super high. Be interested to see what this turns out to be. Like, I'd be very surprised if the Browns had a bottom 10 offense. I would also be very surprised if the Browns had like a top 3 offense. I think they're they're going to earn their middle class ranking in there with some great performances and some pretty awkward ones too. Juan Thornhill is the one thing on defense that I struggle to get excited about. Not because Juan Thornhill's bad, but because, again, this comes down to consistency. I'm pretty sure Myles Garrett is going to consistently impact the game because at this point, Myles don't even have to play well to impact the game because of how teams adjust to him. I'm pretty sure that the rest of the defensive line can impact the game. They're pretty loaded there. I'm pretty confident in JOK's ability to impact the game. Same thing with Grant Delpit and the Browns' 3 excellent corners. What I am not confident in, and hell, I'll even put this out here. I'm confident in Denzel Ward's ability to play most of the season because let's face it, he's done it the last few years. What I'm not super confident in is Juan Thornhill's ability to stay healthy, and 2, his ability to be a above average factor on this defense. He is average. I think he was average last year. I think there were moments where he made some big plays, but he was average for the most part, and he was inconsistently available. The issue with him being inconsistently available is if he is not available, it does kind of mess up the whole back end of the secondary because he is the one guy on the roster that's a true free safety fit. D'Anthony Bell is not a free safety fit. Ronnie Hickman is much too young to trust having out there against veteran quarterbacks. We saw, not even veteran quarterbacks who are familiar with him. We saw what happened with CJ Stroud. And, you don't want to put Grant Delpit away from the line of scrimmage because that's where Grant Delpit thrives. So you don't want to waste Grant Delpit throwing him at free safety, a position where he's not as good at when it comes to what his strengths are. So I think the Browns do need a strong season from Juan Thornhill. I think if they get a strong season from Juan Thornhill, that does change a lot of things for this team. The question is if they can get it. I'm not 100% confident. Because I'm not confident in his ability to stay healthy. And I'm not confident in his ability to play above average, given what his track record was in Kansas City. He's young enough to make a leap, but that's where I'm at on him. So those are the things about the team. And I don't know how I'm going to title this video. I'm going to really think long and hard about it. But those are the things on the team that aren't necessarily the most positive, that I think will rear their head during the season. And look, every season, good or bad, has things that you complain about as a fan. And I think these are going to be some of the things that Browns fans complain about. So maybe that's what I named the video. You'll figure it out when I figure it out. Well, actually, you'll figure it out before I figure it out because I'm figuring it out right now. And this video is going to be up, titled, and thumbnailed by the time you click on it. So you let me know what I named this video. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.